All right, let's move on to the Deathmatch Awards. So we're going to be talking about death matches of this year. Once again, we have some of the highest highs this year I've seen. A lot of really, really strong deathmatch designs. So without further ado, let's get started. Once again, we're starting with the theme, best themed deathmatch.
We are going to be tapping this place for a while because I think Haunted House from SMG3 is the best theme-wise. For those of you who don't know this deathmatch, if you've ever played Luigi's Haunted Mansion from the Wii U game Nintendo Land, it's kind of like that, but as a deathmatch, where essentially you take two rounds. Each round, one player is a ghost, the other player has a partner, and you need to try and figure out where that ghost is based on placing radars and traps. I think it is very easily understandable from that theme. I think it's a cool idea as well. It's another one that, although not necessary for using Minecraft, uses Minecraft's mechanics in literally making the player invisible and having the board be a physical board that they walk around on. And I think it ended up playing out really well in the time that it was played. It's just it's a unique idea too. I'm going to be calling back to this one a couple of times throughout this because I think it's immediately evocative just from the idea of trying to capture an invisible person. It's a hidden movement DM, which I feel like isn't often a concept in general, and I think it worked out really well.
Oh, for sure. I think Haunted House in general is the deathmatch standout from Chardon's Minecraft Genius 3, so I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot. To give some other ones some candidacy here, though, I know I kind of ragged on Simply Genius's theming earlier, but I think when it comes to Tactic Jam, the theming is really, really good. I mean, it's a little bit cheating because they're taking the theme from an existing board game, Rush Hour, right?
Yeah, or you can call it Traffic Jam. I think that's the other name it goes by.
Yeah, where basically the game, the point of the puzzle or the point of the deathmatch is instead of the Traffic Jam and Rush Hour games, which come with pre-made puzzles that you have to solve, in this one you're making the puzzle with your opponent. So it's kind of a NIM-like where you take turns building out this board, place different cards, and the first person who basically either, if you make it impossible, you get challenged and you lose, or there's like a target number, right? Right? So you're basically making your own Rush Hour puzzles. And once again, maybe it's a little bit cheating because they're taking the theming from an existing game that has a really strong theming, but I think like the traffic theme obviously makes so much sense here. Yeah. The whole thing with parking and trying to escape. And I don't know, I think it makes the game super intuitive and easy to explain. So I definitely want to give that one a shout out. And the other one from Simply that I think deserves a bit of a shout out is Bigfoot sighting.
That's what yeah,
which
that one
is kind of insane because like a lot of these other games from Simply, are kind of themeless.
Yeah.
And this one comes in and just kind of smashes it out of the park. The gimmick of the game is that you are controlling like a Bigfoot literally, and you're hunting down a lumberjack who tries to like clear as many trees as possible, and you have to do that while being on the chase. And basically both players are controlling, there's two different boards, and in each board, a different player is controlling Bigfoot, and a different player is controlling the lumberjack. And you have to do better than your opponent. And it's a game where I think it's really easy for hex grid games like this to be themeless, because that's kind of the traditional way you think about strategy games. But I think here the theme is doing a great service to the mechanics, and it just works so wonderfully.
Yeah, I just want to say, Tactic Jam, honestly, Haunted House and Tactic Jam, those are my two favorites from this year. I think Tactic Jam, and this is not exactly themed, this is not talking about the theme necessarily, but I just think it's so creative in general, how it uses a basis of a very well-known game and turns it into a really interesting strategy game. I think also Bigfoot sighting is kind of just Haunted House. They're very similar, aren't they?
You know, yeah, they're kind of similar. Which, I mean, I guess same hosting team. Or like Sean is on both.
Well, one of them you actually know where your targets are.
Yeah, I mean, one is like the games are clearly different, but they
Yeah,
kind
of
of have
course,
a similar ethos.
No,
I
it's funny how they're both. It's really just, do you prefer cryptids or do you prefer ghosts?
Well, I mean, like, okay, first off, I think, like, the theming, the concept of Bigfoot is really funny to me, as a theme. Second, I do think there's a clear difference for me, like, where, like, one of the movement options for Bigfoot is, like, if there's a clear path, you can just kind of, like, jump to there, I think. As long as it's not, like, blocked by trees or anything, but you kind of need to chop down trees as lumberjacks in order to score points. So, like, there's also, like, that dynamic.
I will point out that I would argue that the name Bigfoot sighting implies that you are trying to find Bigfoot, whereas it is the opposite. Bigfoot is trying to find you.
Damn it. You know what? I'm not voting for Bigfoot sighting. You've convinced me.
I will say on the tactic jam point, and I'm sure we'll bring this up later too. It's like it's kind of emblematic of a lot of Simply Genius's design philosophy, which is like being clearly inspired by something from the past, but taking it, infusing your own kind of energy and take on it, and making it into something way better, or you know, more innovative than things that came in the past. So yeah, I mean, I'm personally in agreement with you. Like Tactic Jam and Haunted House are two of my favorite death matches this year. So I'm sure they will be talking about them a lot. That said, one of these games is designed by us. So, XNimus, do you want to talk about your game just a little bit?
No? Are you trying to content farm?
No, I'm just... it's there. It says peeling the banana.
Shut the fuck up!
I mean, it's a pretty good game.
Also, X, didn't you design Tetranogo too?
No, that's
No,
Devs.
that's Devs.
That's
Oh.
I don't know what the theme there is. It's like Tetris pieces.
I just committed microaggression.
Devs. I'm just gonna say Tetranogo doesn't really have a theme, though.
Oh, there were some dodgy.
No, there's
Sorry.
definitely some dodgy ones. I also don't know if, Arm's Length really has a theme.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest thing against peeling the banana is the shape could be any shape. In fact, it was originally intended to be a horseshoe, and then it got retrofitted to be a banana.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That I think. If I'm a voter, I'm never voting for it. If you say that to me, I'll be honest. You debunked it completely.
It was not built around the theme, no.
Please do not vote for peeling the banana.
All right, well, let's move on with that as our last statement for Best Theme Deathmatch. Moving on to Best Strategy Deathmatch, and I'm sure we're going to kind of talk about a lot of the ones we were just talking about. To me, I think the best strategy deathmatch this year, my personal favorite, is Tactic Jam.
Yeah.
Just an incredible take on a nim-like. I thought it was really fun. And I think the thing it does really well is that, like I said earlier, it takes an old game and makes it better. In this case, the old game that Penzo was inspired by was Lockmaker, which for those of you who don't know, is kind of a similar idea. You have to figure out, but the theming there is picking a lock instead. But that game had a lot of balance issues and a lot of weird quirks. And the fact that Penzo was able to take that and salvage that into something so streamlined, so neat, and so perfect like this, just amazing. I really, really enjoy Tactic Jam.
I just want to add on, like, that Lockmaker came from House of Larks, which, if you don't know, I won't say it's known to have complex games, but I know it to have complex games.
Well, and you were a player, so I think you are the utmost authority on that.
There a lot of the design was like on the convoluted side, on the many mechanic side, and that game was taken to be, dare I say, simple. So I think that's a big plus.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, yeah, again, Tactic Jam, just in general, is a cool idea, and it tests a really interesting... Because, as you pointed out, it's Nim, but it's this weird calling your bluff Nim, and it's also placement strategy Nim, and it's puzzle-solving Nim, too. It's a lot of... weird forms of Nim that I think stand out as a game that I know I personally would be horrible at it, because my brain doesn't work that way. But it was really cool to see played, and it's impressive as well. It's one of those games that I would really like to see, like, I could imagine it being in, like, a DM tournament or something, where the strategy building on it would be really interesting.
I think there's a lot of depth that is still unexplored in that game, which I think speaks to its quality.
If it makes you feel better, I play tested that game and I was fucking dog shit. Or my opponent was Penzo. It's hard to tell what the issue was.
It could be both.
But
It could be both.
It could be both. I will say I'm a big cheese hole enjoyer.
I was going to bring up that too, yeah.
I'm also a big arm's length enjoyer. You can start with cheese hole.
Yeah, you go for cheese hole.
I think concept is simple. The way you score points is like easy to grasp. Dimes, I don't know.
Explain for our viewers at home.
Oh, okay. You have like a Tetris board, a Tetris grid. Probably the same size.
Yes, it is.
And you drop down Tetris pieces onto the board, and when you close off an area, such that it makes a hole, you score points equal to the size of that hole. And when you top out, the round ends with the player topping out like losing like 4 points or something.
So essentially, it's like the opposite of Tetris. You want to make as many holes as possible.
Yes,
not
you want
lines.
you want to make the most like unsatisfying to look at Tetris board possible, and whoever scores the most points in 2 rounds wins.
I mean, again, I just think Cheese Hole is another DM that can be played a bunch of times. There's a lot of game theory to extract from it, and not necessarily game theory that I immediately understand as well. But it's such a simple concept that I think it works. Like, jumping ahead a little bit, I think depth for min rules as well, because it almost feels too easy of a rule set. So it's interesting to take an idea like Tetris and to basically force you to completely rethink how the game works.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to show for was arm's length. I think it's basically Gomoku, but you have put pieces that the stones you place down push other stones, and there's an added rule where if 10 of your stones like get pushed off the board, like that's another lose condition on top of like the win condition of making a 5 in a row. I'm just a big Gomoku guy, I will admit. I like Gomoku variants, and I think the added like lose condition adds like another kind of layer to the strategy. It also helps that an issue the game had when it was in its design stages, from what I remember being told by Pencil, was that it starts off slow. So to counteract that, there's like a board with pre-placed stones, and I think that does help like speed up the game and make early game not like stupidly trivial.
No, I think arm's length is also really, really good. I guess the one I will kind of mention from Simply Genius here is Odds End, which, okay, so the preface to this is that Odds End played out horribly. It did not live up to its potential. But that was because one of the players misread the rules and thought like the goal of the game was the opposite of what you were supposed to do. Yeah. Because the win condition in Odds End is you want an even number of groups. But they thought they won if they had an odd number of groups, which is like the complete opposite. And so the game did not play out well, but I was a play tester for Odds End, and that is a wonderfully deep deathmatch that the actual game just did not do service because it played out the way it did. But the aim of the game is you need to make an even number of groups, and you have to have your opponent have an odd number of groups, because after every move there must be an odd number of groups, and it abuses the fact that like even plus odd is an odd number. And so there's just like a lot of like really deep strategy that isn't apparent at first glance. And you know, Jackson was the other playtester. When Jackson and I were playing it, we were literally developing new strategies as we were playing, because it was like, oh, so this is how this game works. And then we'd be like, oh, but if you do that, then this next layer is available, and then this next layer is available. And I feel like it's a game that has endless replayability. It just kind of got the short end of the stick with the way it was played. So I do want to mention it. I think it's really, really fun.
It did look very elegant as a design.
Oh, for sure. And I think it kind of does get hurt a little bit by how it got played. But as a design, I think it is one of my favorite.
The designs from Simply Genius, strategy-wise, make me jealous because I'm not good at designing strategy DMs, and they are so... Because a Battle of Fire and Ice is also completely good. I think it works very well, especially as the first deathmatch. But I think we all would agree that it probably is the least notable of all of them, which is crazy because it's still a really good design.
Oh, 100%. I think, like, in general, when it comes to the deathmatch design, I have, like, almost no notes on the Simply deathmatches. They're all really, really good. They all accomplish exactly what they want to. And they're very, very well-tuned, just incredible games. So you'll be hearing Simply a lot, I think, during this section. Anything else you want to mention, X?
Not really.
You don't want to talk about the Dems game?
Wait, I do want to talk about the Dems game. The game that Dems won in Shardred's Minecraft Genius 3, Color Crossroads.
You're just trolling him at this point. You know he's listening, right? He's listening right now. Debs is going to post a message in the Discord channel right now saying WTMOO as he's hearing this section.
Well, he's gonna like shit on me for like congratulating him on his win.
Okay, well, continue.
So I don't know. I like Color Crossroads. It reminds me of a duo rail.
It is pretty much dual rail, except there's
with like
four.
an element of flower field.
Yeah.
Which are two strat games that I also enjoy.
Personally, I just don't think it's that notable in this field.
I agree.
That's mostly because this field is ridiculous.
It's
I
very
agree.
Yeah.
I also think maybe like the skill ceiling for Color Crossroads might not be as high as the other games.
I would agree. I think
Yeah, it's like the flower field like kind of like where like issue where like it gets deep once both players like aren't as at the observation.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. It's tough for Color Crossroads, but
It's still fun. I play it in my free time.
you'd play a lot of things in your free time. You climb the chess ladder in your free time
Ugh.
on chess.com.
I'm
Ugh.
not rated high. That's the sad part.
It's okay. We all have our sins, our faults, our vices. You don't want to talk about Tetranogo, seriously?
I play tested it once. I got my ass handed to me by the eyepieces, and I think someone else is better off talking about that.
That's fair. I mean, I think it's good. I think Tetranogo is good. I think it is a fun and interesting take on the Tetris game. I think it's or not Tetris game, but of like a grid game. I think it's interesting because like having to choose your piece is I think kind of a fun decision. And like having these like piece to piece matchups makes it I don't know, that like kind of tickles my brain the right way that enjoys like fighting games or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you can make like a matchup chart. Kind of similar to the fun I get from playing Santorini, where each of the gods has a different interaction with the other gods. That said, I think the pool is just tough. I think the pool is just tough, and I think I favor a lot of these other games more, unfortunately. But I still think it's really fun, and I think for a lot of people, it might scratch a certain itch that a lot of these games don't because of its differing mechanics. All right. With that in mind, I think we should move on to best psychological deathmatch, which is, all the death matches that involve reading, bluffing, all that good stuff. So usually I'm someone who thinks good psychological deathmatch design is actually harder than you think. Like, I think psych DMs are easy to make, but because of that, it's very easy to make them low quality in the sense that like you can make a lot of things psych just by being like, yeah, but hide the info or whatever, right? That said, I think this year had some really standout psych death matches, and I kind of want to get us started by talking about Redstone Signal, which
Yeah.
which is a Shardren's Minecraft Genius 3 game where essentially the way the game works is there's this grid of 5x5 redstone. And if you know anything about Minecraft, you know that if you have like a straight line of redstone from a lamp to anything else, it'll light up, right? And so each player has their own lamps, and there's like a redstone block in the middle that powers the redstone. And the goal of the game is to light your lamps while not lighting the lamps of your opponent. And the way to do this is by rotating the different redstone that is available on the 5x5 grid. And you need to make sure that there is a direct path from one of the lamps to the middle redstone block. And super simple, incredible gameplay depth. I think it plays so wonderfully. And I think it's reflected by the fact that both times this game was played, it was really fun to watch. Edge of your seat type of gameplay. And that's because there's a surprising amount of depth in the game, despite it just being like, oh, you rotate the redstone. That's the only interaction you do. And in this case, it's psych and not strategy, because you submit them simultaneously, private submissions, right? So you don't know what your opponent is going to do, but based on what your opponent is going to do, it can change what move is best for you. And finding that move is actually incredibly difficult. And a lot of board states are really interesting, because it's like, okay, if they switch this, if they rotate this redstone piece, then I have an unintuitive path like this way. But if they don't do that, then actually doing the thing that gets me the path would let them score too, right? So there are layers, and those layers are aided by the fact that a lot of these moves are counterintuitive. I think like a common criticism for psych deathmatches is that, oh, sometimes it can just boil down to a coin flip. And like, coin flips are no fun. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I like a good coin flip game, but I think Redstone Signal does it really well, because the player that is better, the player that is noticing more paths, is able to draw out different ways the redstones can lead to their lamp, is massively advantaged, because it means that what the opponent might perceive as a 50-50, they can find a path that makes it like an 80-20. So like this, the more skilled player is more likely to win. And I think that's a really interesting edge to add to a Psych DM that is still at its core Psych. So that's kind of my standout nomination here.
Yeah, I mean, it also utilizes Minecraft's ideas pretty well as well. It's a clear concept that is understandable pretty quickly, and it has a lot of depth. It has a lot of depth.
I will say, as someone who does not play Minecraft and did not know what a redstone was, this like I remember like just tuning in, spectating the deathmatch just randomly one morning, and I just like skimmed through the rules. I don't think I even skimmed through the rules. I just kind of saw like what the board looked like, were with all these paths and like all the center and then like the red and blue and whatever, and I was like, oh wait, this is probably the game. Oh, he just scored a point. I'm pretty sure this is the game. Like it was that simple.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to say, like, I would define a good, bare minimum, a good psych match. You cannot win by just doing random shit. And this is definitely a game where you cannot win by just making random moves.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're gonna get totally outclassed if you do that, right? Like the classic example is like, you can win black and white by randomizing all your moves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You cannot do that here. You will get curb stomped.
On the note of SMG games also, Haunted House is a bit tricky because it is kind of a psych strat game, which falls into a weird, because it was nominated for both Best Strat DM and Best Psych DM, and it might have trouble winning either as a result. But I do think it's the psych is fun because it's informed by the board state and by the goal of the game, which is to get full rooms. And there's some fun bluffing that can be formed from that I think is only possible through the game itself.
Yeah, that's fair. I almost feel like, for me personally, I view Haunted House as more of a strat game than a psych game. Like, there are psych elements, obviously, but I think a lot of that game boils down to, like, can you find the best move given the current board state, right? Even if certain things are hidden, like, I think it is a game about out strategizing your opponent more than reading your opponent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like if you try to read your opponent, like I feel like this is the kind of game where you have to be kind of thorough. Like if not just for your own sanity, I feel like my issue with this game is sometimes it feels slow. In that like you kind of like the ghost can just play really thoroughly. And like just play to not get caught, won't make a lot of progress, will drag out the game.
That is true.
The Seeker can also just be really thorough, not make any like bold moves because like there's like little reward, like there's too much risk for the reward. If you just like decide to like, you know what, I'll just overlook this one spot, and just kind of press onwards and kind of see where that takes me. So in that sense, I feel like I would nominate it for like, I would vote for it for like most innovative, best themed. I don't know if best psychological is where I'd put my vote on.
That's fair. I think, like Spicy said earlier, it might have trouble winning for Strat or Psych because it kind of gets beat at that game by a lot of these other ones. But I agree with you. I think for best themed or some of the other awards, it'll have a better shot.
I want to quickly go into, and feel free to cut this out if you don't want this, but I want to do a quick /neg where not neg in general. I think Simply Genius's deathmatch designs are great. I think both of the two Psych games that they made are a little too simple, honestly. I think they're very, both of them are very clear, but also they're simplified versions of games that already exist and have won quite a few awards already, and I think it's slightly outclassed, much like how it's doing the outclassing in, for example, the Strat DM category. I think here they make perfect sense and they're very functionable, but I think especially compared to some of the other designs, they're just they're not as immediately evocative as some of the others, I would say.
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement. I feel like, especially because to us, like, we know the inspiration, and so we can see like, oh, this is where it's taking its inspiration from, these are where the roots are, but it also means that we see how they've been simplified. And like, I think the simplification is fun and it's cool for the new players, but I do think personally that kind of, how do I say this? It makes it difficult for me to vote for them over some of these games that are trying new and audacious things.
Yeah. Like, I look at these games, I go, oh, this is just Wizards Duel Light. This is just Diet 5-card trick, you know?
And like, I will say, like, okay, 3-card trick I think is truly Diet 5-card trick. I will say some of the new effects in Martial Fight
are fun.
The way they kind of interact, it's fun. I think it's novel, and I like the new takes on these games. It's just at the core of these games are games that are already heavily lauded, while something like Redstone Signal, Haunted House, these are new games that are trying new things in the Genius space, and for that I think they should be rewarded. Anything else you want to mention out of this list?
Yes. You guys need to talk about fucking Tiger Ascent.
Stop
being so coy. Big up your game.
Well,
so I like Power Down. I think it's really simple.
Okay, go for it. Let's talk about Power Down first. Yeah, go for it.
I don't have much to add. It's a simple game.
Yeah, I mean, Power Down is also a really good game. Like, once again, I think Power Down is running into an issue like some of these Simply Genius games are, which is that Redstone Signal, I think, is just really, really good. And we can talk a little bit about Tiger Ascent, because we came up with that game randomly, like, in the middle of the evening while we were sitting. We were like, damn, we need a deathmatch. That said, I think we did pretty well. I think it kind of, like, a little less than 5-card trick and Wizards Duel. Tiger Ascent is also clearly inspired by another game, a board game called Can't Stop, right? Mm-hmm. Where you roll dice, and based on the dice rolls, you move up your hikers up a mountain. We basically take the base of that game and we're trying to retrofit it into a genius deathmatch. And the first thing you do, like in all good Genius death matches, is you take all the luck elements and you make them deterministic. So instead of rolling dice, the two players that are playing submit dice values that add up to the values that are used to climb up the mountain. And to spice up give some extra mechanics, you can also submit values that are not on the dice using a special coin that lets you submit 0 or 7, but you can only use it once per turn. So there's some extra mechanics, and the aim of the goal is to get your hikers up the mountain with obviously numbers that are more frequent, requiring more appearances. So for example, you only need to roll 11 like 3 times to make it to the top of the mountain.
Something like that.
Right, but you need to roll 7, I think like 6, 7 times, because there's just so many more combinations that yield 7 versus 11. And the other thing about this, if people aren't familiar with the original game, is that if you ever roll a number that you can't, so you can only have so many hikers climbing the mountain at the same time. And if you roll a number that is none of those, and none of the ones your hikers are currently on, then all the hikers collapse and fall. So it's also a game about risk management, right? Okay, my hiker has made it to, halfway through the 7 mountain. If you end your turn, you get to save your progress. But then that gives your opponent the chance to catch up to you, while you can keep pushing to kind of seize your advantage. But if you go too far, then you're going to fall and lose all of your progress. I personally thought that element of the game would work really well in a deathmatch, so that was why we kind of started doing this. And I think it is really fun. I think it is genuinely there's a lot of consideration. It's another Psych DM where you can't randomize your submissions. There are clear dice pairs that are better than other dice pairs, and so if you randomize your submission, you will lose. And nobody found out about the funny tricks we put in the game.
Oh dear.
But there are tricks in this game that I guess we won't reveal the secrets of here. But there are ways to make the Psych work to your advantage.
And this also ended up playing out very close as well.
Oh,
I sure
yeah.
hope this one was nominated for Best DM to Spectate, because it was really cool to spectate.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Really? Wait.
But it was fun. It was fun because this was Sixella versus Dems, right?
Yeah.
And it was very, very close.
We can get to that later, but
we can't because
We can't.
He
It
was,
wasn't
he was
nominated
making a
for
joke.
Best DM.
Yo, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I mean, it was really fun to watch. I think it proves the fact that there are a lot of meaningful decisions that players can make. I remember X and I, it was this close game, and we were like, oh, I think Sixella should have pushed her advantage when she could have. I think she was playing too conservative versus
Both players played extremely conservative.
Yeah, right? So there's a lot of unexplored depth in the game. I think it's a fun Psych game where, you can get screwed by your opponent reading you, but also there are clear ways to kind of make the coin flip weighted for you.
Yep.
I mean, I remember what was going on in that game. It was Dems was leading, but Sixella had a way. I think Dems made a mistake, right? He completed one of his hikers, which meant that he basically had to all in on 2 things, but Sixella was inching up on something.
I'm gonna be real, I just completely forgot the details. Other than both players just kind of inched one space at a time every turn, and then just ended their turn.
That is true. It did ended up being super close, and it is the first of Sixella's saga in getting 3rd place.
I would, yeah, I mean, when you have 2 snails competing against each other, I don't think one snail would be that noticeably faster than the other.
What do you think, Spicy?
This one was probably my vote, to be honest, but Redstone Signal also, I think, offers a compelling choice as well here.
Yeah, I would probably give my vote to the Tiger Ascent or Redstone Signal, depending on how much I want to pat myself on the back.
You did good, man. You did
Thanks
good.
for the handshake.
Yeah.
We shook hands. For those who...
I think it's one of those 2, for sure. All right, let's move on to Best Mental Deathmatch, which is slightly more of a nebulous category, but essentially what mental means here is kind of shorthand for mental agility. It's usually the games you associate with buzzing in first, or trying to find something first, solving the puzzle first, finding the math equation first, etc., etc. With that said, this is also generally a smaller category. Do you have a pick out of these, Spicy?
Yes, I do. I absolutely love Three's a Crowd.
Oh boy, that one is crazy.
I think this is the perfect OBS game. It just is so... It's just so perfect. It's so perfect to me because it's as simple as it can come. It's basically cards are flipped one at a time. Each card has 3 symbols on them. Your goal is to find groups of 3 cards that share at most 6 symbols. So ideally 3 pairs. And it's as simple as it could possibly be because it is an observation game that slowly escalates as the game goes on, which is something that I really like, because you do slowly gain points as each layer more options open up to you. So it has a natural escalation, and I think it's one of those games where it rewards having a good skill set, to be honest. It's a game that I wish I could have played because it's such a fun pattern recognition game, and it's designed so well. It's, again, one of those great aspects of a Simply Genius deathmatch, where it kind of boils something down to its bare essentials, where this is all about recognizing patterns. There's a degree of almost like future sight because each round you get you start out with the same layers, and as more layers are added, the same initial base are already there, so you already have an idea of what cards work with what. You have 2 pairs here, 1 pair here. You can start to piece them together, and I think obviously we saw someone who kind of ran away with it in terms of the actual game, but I feel like that's not always a bad thing because this is a game that will reward the player who does better, who has the right skill sets for the game. And it's just it's a game that really clicked in my head super easily, to be honest. I just think it's very understandable, and that's a strength of it, I would say.
Oh, 100%. Now, I know you said you would want to play this game. I would not want to play this game because I would be terrible at it. That said, it is extremely good, and I agree with you that it kind of distills down observation gameplay and makes a really amazing game out of it. Because it's not so simple of a task to find these 3 cards, but you have to do it over and over and over again. But it's also not so difficult that it literally blows your mind and it's impossible, right? I think they find the correct sweet spot of what an observation puzzle should be. And that can actually be very, very difficult. My shout out other than Three's a Crowd for this category is Shadow Math, which I thought was really, really fun. I mean, in terms of innovation or in terms of actual simple core gameplay, I think Three's a Crowd is probably the winner. Shadow Math is one of another long line of equation building games where you have to find an equation that satisfies a target number. Except here, the point is you have a grid of numbers and you need to you're given a shape. You're given a shape, right? And then you have to find where the shape can go on the grid such that the numbers that belong in that shape you can use to create the target number. So each round you're given a target number and a shape in a giant grid of numbers. You need to make the target number using the shape. Now, the game here is not super original, although I will say the shape gimmick is really fun. But it's super fun to play, super simple to understand.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really fun. There's so many ways you can approach the game, right? Because one way you can approach the game is trying to find, the best set of numbers that give you the most odds of creating the number. You can try looking around for the shape, or the other thing you can do is just put your shape always in some corner and be can I use these numbers to brute force the solution? So there's an observation element, there's a math element, and you can choose, as the player, you can decide I'm more confident in my math, so I'm going to focus in on that. Or I'm more confident in my ability to quickly scan for the things I want, so I'm going to focus on that. And I think that causes the game to be a lot of fun and well designed.
This is the game that I wouldn't want to play, but it's immediately understandable, and it's kind of one of those games where I saw it and I was like, I'm shocked this hasn't been done before, because it just makes a lot of sense as a way to get a math observation game.
I feel like we've said that about so many Sam games, but it truly is because he's so good at that. Like, finding some simple game, and so simple, or like that has such intuitive mechanics that you go, wait, this really hasn't been done before? I swear he's stealing someone's vibe. And it's like, no, he's not. This is a Sam game. Anyways, I think like it is truly very, very simple. And I do think, I don't know, it's really, really well done. Anything else you want to talk about, X? Those are the two main things that that come to mind for me from this category.
Yeah, based on what I'm hearing, I think 3 is a crowd is my vote. Although, like, I do like Tactic Jam, but I think that's more strat than puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, there's a puzzle element, but I do think the strategy is what makes that game elegant.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. All right, let's move on to Best Miscellaneous Deathmatch, which is always a hilarious category, because I tell the awards team this every year. The category needs to exist because there's always one game every year that belongs in this category, but also nothing else. So it's not like we can snub those games. Like, we can't just be like, yeah, you know, Boundaries of Few and Many can't win any awards because, like, there's no Misc category. But at the same time, it's, you know, such a nebulous category because it's literally and everything else by definition. That said, I do think out of all of these, Social Stratego is my vote. And I know that, like, I think some people could be like, well, that's a strategy game. But no, I think Social Stratego is a social game first and foremost, with interesting strategic elements. And the strategic elements are important, and they make it so that it's not just like betting rock, paper, scissors or winning streak or whatever. But the social is super, super pivotal to how this game plays out. Being able to collect information, being able to trust information, being able to use that information to figure out what the best move is. It's all super crucial. And because of that, I think it is one of the best social death matches that we've seen in the community. Super well done. And I also like that, you know, it incorporates the main match 0 that Sam was disguising. He just said, you know, this is an icebreaker, but it turns out he needed to collect that data because he needed to use it for this death match. I think it's like really, really well done. Was obviously hilarious to see play out, and is probably my vote for this rather small category.
I'm nodding my head in agreement.
If you nod your head, nobody can see it. There's no
Yeah,
camera.
I thought it would be funny to do. I thought that was kind of your cue to point out. He's nodding his head like a maniac to no one in particular. He didn't back me up here. All right. No, I do agree. I really like Social Stratego, especially like for a social DM. I think also like one underrated aspect is these players did puzzles and were timed on those puzzles, which they were only told their times. However, what was important in the deathmatch was the rankings of the players. So it was up to the players that were in the deathmatch to collect that info, compare that info, and then like come up with a ranking accordingly.
And to get those rankings correct instead of relying on outside help to get incorrect values, perhaps.
And there were also 3 stats per piece on the board per player.
Because there were 3 puzzles.
Because there are 3 puzzles, and so it wasn't just one player. Like one player may like dominate one type of puzzle, but may not dominate like the other types of puzzles. So there's still always counterplay. I'm going to attack you with my math puzzle. This player's math puzzle. You can probably defend with your observation puzzle, and then it'll tie or something, or like But I think there is an element of like almost rock paper scissors.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
That I felt was unique, and I cannot speak for the other games.
I think to be a little, just the tiniest bit salty,
This game reminds me of community chess.
Yes, obviously that. For me, it was a little over-engineered. For me, it was just, I felt like it was just a little too much, but also I can acknowledge that it's kind of perfect for the Misc category. And I think it used a specific thing that could not exist anywhere else. And again, that is something that is to give credit to Sam's design philosophy, in that he's able to make really just specifically unique ideas come to fruition pretty well. And I think this is a clear example of that. Even if I'm salty that he got there first.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. There are moments where, like, I wonder if, like, the Stratego elements were like 100% necessary, and like, oh, is it truly necessary to copy over some of these things? But I do agree with X that, like, the ranks being important and having 3 different values, like, was super unique and fun. And I don't know, it's like, I think I'm pretty confident in saying this is probably the best social deathmatch I've seen, like, not just of this year, but just period within the community. I can't think of something that does it better, which I think is pretty incredible.
That's next year. That's next year. We can't talk about events from the future.
Just to play devil's advocate against all of us, I guess, I do think Double or Nothing is also, like, a relatively good fit for this category, and is also probably the standout design from Code Redone, in my opinion. I think you can take kind of poke holes at quite a few things in Code Redone, unfortunately, but I think Double or Nothing is, like, an incredibly good game that, once again, kind of got overshadowed by how it ended up playing out. But the gist of the game is that it's kind of like a card game where you have all these cards, but you can basically play from either end, and you can you can play cards, but the order of the cards matters, because if the cards next to each other are, like, the same, then you can play them all at once. Or if there's, like, a straight, right? If there's, like, a 1, 2, 3, 4, but specifically they have to be in that order in your hand. So the important thing about this game is it's about optimizing your hand placement, right? It's about optimizing the placement of your cards in your hand, which is kind of not something that neatly falls into strategy, psychological, or mental. Like, you could argue that it's kind of an optimization angle, but it's not optimization in the same way that an optimization puzzle is, right? And this is also nominated for Best Psych DM, mostly because there's a mechanic where you can call your opponent's bluff or bluff yourself by being like, hey, I believe that I can win this game, right? I believe that I can win this bout. So you call a double. You pass your turn and you instead say, I'm so confident I can win this bout that I'm going to double the point value of this bout, right? And if your opponent gets scared, they can basically say, I give up, you take the original value, or they can play on with double the points at stake. And so I thought that was a super fun mechanic where you can, like, and you can do this over and over again. So you can, like, double, and your opponent can be like, I call your bluff, I'm going to double on top of that. Now the bout is worth 4 points, and the opponent can be like, well, okay, yeah, I'm going to double again. Now this bout is worth 8 points, and now, everything rides on this bout. I don't know. I think the double mechanic is super cool. I thought the core gameplay of, like, rearranging your hand and figuring out how to optimize your hand, also super cool. So yeah. Best depth for Min Rules Deathmatch.
I would like to put forward a match that we have not talked about yet, because most of these we've already talked about, and I'm sure will be in contention. But actually, I think my personal vote is one that hasn't shown up yet. It is Color Theory from Genius 1.
Oh, good one, yeah.
I just think this is so elegant. The basic idea is the color theory. I don't know the exact name of this theory, but the idea...
four-color theorem.
Oh, thank you. The idea that with 4 colors, you can fill in any, like, grid of shapes to where no color will be touching itself. you can have unique colors in each of them. And they turned it into one of the most interesting NIM games I think I've ever seen, that also has this super fun degree of customizability, where basically any board style can be a game board that you play on. And it means that you can practice the basics of this game, but there are so many intricacies, and it becomes this weird where you're trying to get the board as close to impossible as possible without making the move that makes it impossible. So instead of just kind of filling in the board in a normal way, you're putting moves 3 moves in advance, where you're trying to force your opponent to make a mistake, and then you can call out their bluff. This is another game where it's like, my mind, it hurts my brain to think about all of the permutations and all of the strategies, especially given how each unique board brings its own strategies to the game. Where, like, again, I don't know, Marcer, if you, like, edit the board or if you show these things on it, but, like, for example, the final board for the final, when this was run in finals, had, like, subsections of the board where it's I can't even begin to think about, and it's such a simple idea where it's just a color cannot be touching itself, fill in these boards, and it's so cool how many permutations it has in strategy just in general, and I think that makes it so cool. And again, I love a game where you can just make any board and it's a viable board. One of them was the United States of America. That's so fun.
Oh,
Upside down.
100%.
Upside down.
Upside down. Yeah, because we needed to mask that it was the United States of America. No, I agree with Spicy here. It's just incredible, and you can tell it's minimum rules because there were so many people who were just tuning in, especially for the finals. And it took them like a minute to understand the rules. And they got it immediately and started being like, wait, this is a bad move. Wait, I think this is an interesting move. And there is so much depth that is created or emerges from the fact that literally any board can be the play state, right? And that means that the strategy changes from board to board. Like, obviously the same fundamentals apply, but the way you approach different boards is going to be different. Yeah. And that's where the depth comes. And also based on like what your opponent does. I think it's a very deserving nom. And if I say so myself, I think it might have done the Simply Genius thing a little better than Simply Genius. Which is not to say any of the Simply Genius games are not good or are not deserving of this award. But I personally feel like Color Theory kind of runs away with this a little bit. My personal favorite out of the Simply Genius ones for this category is probably Odds End, because that is also a game you can describe in 2 sentences. It's literally place on board, even group wins, right? That's the entire game. And so much depth emerges from those simple set of rules. That said, Color Theory is pretty hard to beat because it's just so intuitive to understand. And it's also so easy to start playing, but it takes forever to get to like the depth of the game that you need to win at it, right? Like, I think the fact that every person who played this deathmatch officially made a blunder speaks to like how difficult and how much depth there actually is. It's not that easy to spot.
I will say my complaint with Color Theory is early game just might be a little too trivial.
I mean, yeah, I guess it runs into the issue that a lot of NIM likes to, where the earlier moves are less substantial. That said, I think Color Theory, yeah, I mean, it always runs into that issue, but...
Well, I think almost, because due to the fact that there's, like, different shapes and whatnot, like, for example, here, and feel free to cut this out if you don't want this, but, like, if you look at this play, where U was covered, that is a much different play than just the AH red in the top right, because you're affecting more squares with each one that you place. And so that U in the yellow there is taking out a lot more options than the AH in the top right. And so I think there's at least, because it's not just like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison, but I'm not game savvy enough, but it's not like you're just randomly placing on a grid to decide how the starting movesets are going to. This is a much bolder play than, like, for example, placing AT down in the bottom there in that random circle.
You're right for this board, but most boards were, not this.
That's very fair.
I think that's fair, but I think Spicy is also just bringing up the point that, like, players can choose to play as risky as they want, which sometimes that isn't true for Nim likes.
That's fair.
To be honest, though, I think there's a lot of good choices for this category as well. We talked about a lot of them a little bit. Cheese Hole is immediately understandable. Redstone 100%. Signal, Arm's Length. There's a lot of good choices here, and I think that was like, looking at this set of death matches, perhaps one of the biggest strengths is how simple they are and how much depth you can get out of them. Okay, do we want to move to the big one?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oof. You want to talk about best deathmatch to spectate? This is always a category that's stacked. Yeah.
I think the big one is Redstone Signal, Dems versus Grunkle.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a killer.
I think on top of, like, the game being simple to understand, like, easy to follow, and the game just being fun, I think there was an added layer of, like, player narrative, where everyone, to my knowledge, it felt like a bunch of people were rooting against Grunkle because he was kind of like a player to beat in death matches.
Yeah.
And so people were very invested in the outcome of this deathmatch, and I think that added to, like, the tension when spectating the deathmatch, on top of the game already being, like, super hyped to spectate, like, just as a game. So I think that's, like, to me, like, that's a very, like, if I had to name something off the top of my head, that would be, like, what I'd, like, pick to nominate. That being said, I have to look at these other options to decide, like, if I, how I want to vote.
Well, to chime in, first of all, it was an absolute slugfest because it was even until the very end. And I think there was never a lead of more than 2 points, I believe.
Yeah, it went, like, back and forth. Like, different people were in the lead, like, at different times, I believe.
It also is, and I brought this up in a chat as well because I do feel it strongly. Dems and Grunkle, I think, in terms of active Genius Org players, are in the top 5 for deathmatch consistency.
Yeah.
If we look at active players, Dems and Grunkle are, you have to consider them as some of the best. And so to have two very competent players going up against each other as, like, this big title card match, the fact that it delivered too, which is something that admittedly I wish any of the matches from Code Redone had done. That is something that I think gives it so much more credence, is the fact that both players were playing fantastically. They were trading blows. It was well deserved at the very end who won, but you cannot say either of them played poorly because it was a nail biter. And although there are great choices throughout this, I think that stands out just because of, as X mentioned, the narrative to it as well. It was truly like,
for sure.
It was something that the spectators were all chomping off their fingernails because every move would come in and a player would get 1 point above and then it would be evened up and you could never tell. I love that.
It was incredible. It was, yeah, like, I think the fact that it was so close, it was between two people who were playing their hearts out, just so exciting to watch. So we're going to go from that and we're going to go to, like, the complete opposite where, maybe it wasn't two powerhouses and maybe, they didn't make the best moves, but because of that, it was really, really, really fun to watch. The social stratego game that was played between
dear.
Josh and Sparkle Bunny.
Polar opposite to what we just talked about.
Complete opposite. But somehow, because it's so much of a polar opposite, it kind of was also a joy to spectate. So for those of you who don't know, this is a game between first of all, let's give the proper context, right? Dems and Grunkle are two veterans of Genius Stories. They've been doing this for half a decade now. Can you believe that? But this is Josh and it's Sparkle Bunny's first ever deathmatch, first ever Genius episode, right? They're in the DM, and so the gameplay isn't as refined. They don't really know as much, but because of that, we get a game where the so to speak evaluation bar.
It's like watching like two 400 rated chess players.
Yes, the evaluation bar is spiking back and forth. It's like auto win for white, auto win for black, auto win for white, auto win for black, back and forth and back and forth. And it's such an incredible I will say there's an incredible narrative going into this. Sparkle has most everyone's support. She has a lot of the numbers down, but for some unfathomable reason, instead of just calculating which times or which ranks herself by looking at the numbers, she puts it through ChatGPT and asks ChatGPT this is the table I have. Can you tell me which person is in 4th place or whatever? She uses ChatGPT to generate the values, and it turns out the values are wrong. ChatGPT can't do the comparison. And so she goes into the deathmatch with this hanging narrative of the spectators are oh, is it gonna matter? And some spectators are oh, it's not gonna matter. She has so much of an informational advantage. And other spectators are but watch, something is gonna happen where she thinks a piece is this rank when it's not. And that's exactly what happens. She has all the momentum. She has all the pieces, and she looks at her notes and she's oh, okay, I can capture with this piece, and it's gonna be an auto take because this is the rank and this is gonna be their rank. She goes for the move, and then of course Sam has to be Sparkle has made this move. Sparkle's piece has died. And Sparkle's oh, uh-oh. And from there, the game just spirals out of control. Josh makes a terrible move. He gives insta win to black by locking his king basically in the back rank so it can never escape. Sparkle doesn't see it, makes a different move, allows Josh to escape. Then Josh starts making a mad dash for Sparkle's corner, being oh yeah, that has to be the king. Just keeps suiciding his pieces into the corner until eventually one of his soldiers brute forces his way there and takes the win. And it's just incredible to watch. It's just like Redstone's Signal, it's a total slugfest of a game. I think it goes on for 50 turns, right? Just this incredibly long game, and it comes down somehow to the wire because they're blundering back and forth so much that it looks like Josh is gonna win, but you can never be sure. And then he makes the winning move, and it's so cathartic to be wow, what a game we just watched. That's going down in history. That's going down in history. It had an opening act, it had a climax, it had a reversal, it had an ending act. What more do you want? It's just Shakespearean play. Incredible stuff.
I did not know about the ChatGPT bit.
Wow.
You didn't know about the ChatGPT bit?
It's the best part about it, I would argue.
Holy shit. This is a lesson on something about AI. I don't know.
Don't use your
moral of the story.
Another slugfest from Genius 1, a match that feels like it should have been in the final 3 or 4, and it's crazy that it was round 3, is Perspective between Grayson and Morthai. Which was, again, a title card match that happened way too early, but one of the closest observation matches I have ever watched, because I think the one fatal flaw of observation games is when a player is better than another, you can kind of tell. it usually goes pretty clearly in that person's favor, because I feel like it's one of those where it's hardest to overcome a skill gap. If somebody just clicks more with the type of game, they're just going to do better. And so it was crazy to see that this is a game that starts out at the end of round 3. It's 4-1 Morthai to Bradley, and it ends up going to the point where 2 games to the end, it's 9 Bradley, 8 Morthai, where it's practically match point. It nearly gets to match point. If Morthai was able to get the round 11, then it would have been at match point. And it is crazy how much it flips back and forth where both players take leads. And especially, again, being these are 2 people who I think most of the players observed as some of the brighter people in the org so far, and obviously that's all subjective, but they had been perceived as threats up till that point. And so to
100%,
see them going up and to see it be so back and forth in a style of match that usually tends to be more snowbally, great to see.
I'm in agreement. I feel like it was a climax. I mean, this was the topic of conversation even at the time. Like, it was a climax that was happening too early. You know, this is a type of matchup you see, you know, in the 6th, 7th, or 8th episode, where like 2 kind of big spearhead figures go to the death match, settle their differences. One person comes out the winner. But it happens in episode 3, and they deliver. Like, it's a close game. It's an intense game. And it helps that perspective is a game that like kind of encourages viewers to also be invested and be like, oh, I think I can find it. Can I do better than the players? I don't know. Just really, really fun to watch.
I do also want to say, there's at a certain point, like, Morthai like finds the answer to one of the boards. How the system works is you don't buzz in, you just like say the answer, right? And like whoever says it first like gets points accordingly. So there's no buzz in to reserve you giving your answer like system. You just say the answer, right? Morthai finds the answer. He proceeds to say too easy. He spends precious seconds in this race typing out too easy before actually saying the answer, and then he says the answer. He gets the points, and then he hasn't scored for the next 3 rounds in a row. Peak comedy.
Oh my god.
He taunted. He Smash Bros taunted.
He taunts to get bodied.
I mean, it helps that Grayson and Morthai are just incredible, like, people to spectate in general.
Yeah.
Like, they definitely, how do I say it? They definitely have great showmanship. They're all about the content. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great one. If we're talking about other ones, I think out of these, Genius Recharged one, the final match 2 between Apple and Major Banshee was also incredible. That one quite literally came down to the wire. Apple made an incredible reverse comeback to kind of snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. And kind of like Dems versus Grunkle, it was a game where both players were really good at the game. And, you know, Major Banshee made an incredible play, I believe in round 6, to come to match point. And then Apple just kind of bodies him for the rest of the game. And it was just really fun to watch. Both players were making like crazy moves. It's love letter, but you can bluff, right? So making like crazy bluffs, doing the best they can. And once again, coming down to the wire between 2 players that are evenly matched, that's kind of the secret sauce to making like a good deathmatch to spectate. And I think this happening in finals where the stakes are the highest really adds to the energy of the deathmatch. And it was just really fun. Even as someone who was helping out with the hosting, I was very invested in like, oh, what's gonna happen? Oh, is she gonna call the bluff? Is he gonna call the bluff? Who's gonna end up with the princess? Like, how is he gonna deal with the princess? Just super, super fun to watch. I think those are all the ones I want to mention.
This is a top-heavy one, I think, where there's a lot of good ones, but those 4 are so far and ahead, in my opinion, just because they're really notable for good and bad reasons.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Let's move on to most innovative deathmatch then.
I mean, once again, Tactic Jam is one of the ones that I will bring up just because it's something that I never would have thought of, and it's just really cool in general. And I think that's kind of innovation. It should be something where you see it and you're like, whoa, I never thought of that. Haunted House as well. I think Haunted House uses Minecraft. Redstone Signal as well. I didn't really consider that one, but again, this conversation has it's a really great design. Yeah, honestly, this is a great category though. Looking at the 6 that made the finals, I really wouldn't complain about any one of these taking home the victory, except for maybe Arm's Length. Sorry, Arm's Length.
Yeah, I mean, Arm's Length is good, but I agree with you that when it comes to the field of innovation, it is a Gomoku variant.
Yeah.
While a lot of these other ones are trying new and interesting things. Even it's like Hexfield Buddy, Bigfoot Sight, or not, Arm's Length doesn't even take place on a hex field, but like it's kind of strategy, grid game Buddy, Bigfoot Sighting is doing kind of more interesting things.
Yeah.
So, I personally, my pick is probably gonna be Haunted House or Bigfoot Sighting. Tactic Jam is really good, and I've sung its praises a lot. But for me personally, the fact that, it is taking Lockmaker and packaging it into something that is way, way better, but, is still kind of taking some mechanics from Lockmaker, kind of makes it difficult for me to vote for the innovation category. I think it is still plenty innovative, because I think it is difficult to make the base of Lockmaker into something functional. So I think in that sense it is innovative, but I think it has a hard time going up against Haunted House and Bigfoot Sighting, who are trying like truly new things within their respective fields. So probably one of those two. For similar reasons, I'm probably not going to vote for Social Stratego, because yes, it's trying innovative things, but a lot of the base mechanics are taken from a different game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, XNimus?
I mean, like the only thing that's just not innovative is Arm's Length, IMO.
Yeah.
Like, I can say something like somewhat, actually maybe Redstone Signal also.
Well, I think Redstone Signal is actually plenty innovative.
Because it uses a concept pretty well.
Yeah. I don't know if we've seen a game where you have to make paths
That's
to
fair.
score. Yeah. I think it is deceptively simple, but I think it, number one, takes advantage of the Minecraft setting well.
Okay, I don't think Redstone Signal can only be hosted. You can get a spreadsheet.
Oh,
Yeah, of course.
So like but I do like the core gameplay. I think like something can be said to all of these games other than Arm's Length.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it will be a tough category, but I wouldn't be upset with any of these coming out on top. Like I said, it's just been a really good year all around.
I think also one other thing that just has not been mentioned. We like talked about Haunted House a lot, but we have not mentioned it's actually a 2v2 deathmatch, which is pretty unique in the field of Genius.
Yeah.
It's also a 2v2 deathmatch that isn't awful or takes forever or is miserable. Those are like big qualifiers.
Well, it can be a bit slow.
Yeah, I mean, Haunted House definitely has some issues with pace as well. But I think historically the community has struggled with coming up with good and interesting 2v2 designs. The other big 2v2 design I can think of is Hero of the Arena, which is not a traditional 2v2. It kind of circumvents a lot of the traditional issues with 2v2s by having like two separate 1v1s. Like one player does the drafting, the other player does the actual card game playing. Which I think is innovative, but I think Haunted House is just kind of like, yeah, we're going to do like a straight 2v2 and we're going to try to make one that works. And I think they did succeed. So in that sense, I think it deserves a lot of its props. Last, but absolutely, certainly not least, most fun deathmatch. And this category is crazy. It has, 14 different nominations. And only one can win this one. I mean, a lot of games we've already talked about here.
I'm pretty certain we've talked about all but 2. I think the only two that we haven't talked about yet are toxicology and brick building.
Yes. Do you have any thoughts to start us off, XNimus?
Yeah, so I will say, as someone who has played brick building, and got my ass beat, like, very tremendously, red ass beat, like, I had a lot of fun playing brick building. Unlike Haunted House and Redstone Signal, I truly believe you can only play this game on Minecraft.
Yeah.
Like, to a fun extent. To a game that's like to an extent that's serviceable. I do think it suffers from like what most observation games suffer from, where like if it clicks with you more, like there's just like you're not overcoming that skill gap.
Yeah.
However, I still think it's really fun, like to just like, you know, look at 2D grids and of like different viewpoints of a cube. Not necessarily a cube, of a 3D like collection of bricks placed in a particular order. You get like a front view in 2D, you get a back view in 2D, you get a side view, left side view in 2D, the right side view in 2D, top view in 2D, and you have to recreate that into a 3D version of those collection of bricks. I don't know, it's really fun. I'm just bad, and also hindered by not knowing Minecraft controls.
That's true. Yeah. I do think, like, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, the fact that brick building is a deathmatch where you kind of can get skill gapped means that it has the potential to be a little unfun. While some of these other ones, I think, don't suffer from that issue. Like, personally, I feel I play tested Redstone Signal, and I feel like that game is like always pretty fun to play, and you don't get skill gapped in it. At least not like as noticeably in brick building, where like if you're going against Grunkle Squeaky in Minecraft, you just kind of sit there and you go, well, I guess I won't play the video game, you know?
Coughing baby versus hydrogen squeaky.
But yeah.
Actually, I could have won that if I just called Impossible the first 4 turns, and then the psychological damage with the score gap will get to it.
God, anyway.
But yeah, so I mean, I personally think Redstone Signal is just super fun to play. I can say that because I play tested it, and like just being able to like puzzle through like, oh wait, this move accidentally lets my opponent score, I can't do that, like, and trying to like kind of figure out what the optimal lines are. There's a lot of thinking that's at play. Like your brain has to be constantly engaged, but it's not, you know, overtaxing. And I don't know, I simply have a lot of fun playing that. Do you have any takes, Spicy?
I would like to nominate Perspective. And again, I know it's not an original game necessarily, which makes it a bit weirder to possibly nominate, but it is something that's very hard to recreate, and a lot of effort was put into recreating it. And I just think it's a specific puzzle that really tickles my brain in the right way. It's incredibly simple, and it tickles the brain. That's really all I can say. Is it's a puzzle that I remember looking at it, and I would solve them myself. I wouldn't look at the answer. I would be like, how fast can I piece this together? And I think that is a good sign of a match that just works.
I agree. I think also worth mentioning, brick building is also not original. They're both from Game of Blood.
My ass did not
brick
watch
building
that
and
shit.
Perspective.
I also did not watch it, so I mean, X could be lying to me, and I would just have to take him at face value.
However, I do think both games are fun observation games. I think Perspective does have the added benefit of you can play along, even as a player, whereas brick building, you just kind of have to like twiddle your thumbs and wait for someone to get it. That being said, I will say, like, Perspective was it was pretty fun to like make puzzles for, as someone who is the guy who made them. I just can pat myself on the back for that one. We look through like potential like games that we can rip off. Dems and I like we kind of like saw like the Maze Code, what the game actually was called in the show, and we went, oh, this is such a sick game. But like we can't make a 3D like version of the maze. It's just like, how do we do that? So we just like, you know, put it to the side And then and then the next day I was like, Dems, I figured it out. I made a Photoshop like document to like make a template for like making the 3D spaces. He's like, oh baby. So he goes to Penpa and starts making the 2D mazes, and then the rest was history.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of care and effort put into all those puzzles and the graphics, and I think it works really, really well. I think Odds End is also fun. Like, once again, I'm kind of speaking mostly for the ones that I ended up actually play testing, and Jackson and I had a lot of fun playing Odds End. It was just like super, super fun, very high depth, and for me personally, I really like strategy death matches. Like, they're the thing that kind of tickles my brain the right way, and I think Odds End has like the perfect amount of like super simple rule set, large amount of depth, that makes me really like invested and like, wow, I'm having a lot of fun trying to figure out what the best move in this position is, and taking my time to think through my options. So that was going to be my other shout out.
Yeah, I would like to, for psych matches, I think Doubting Love Letter also is a really, I mean, just based on how much fun it was to spectate, I think that also kind of contributes to things. And I think it's a good design because it's iterating on a game that is very, very simple, and it is giving it so much more depth. And it's worth saying. I just want to say, I love Toxicology as a game, obviously. I think that it doesn't fit in here because it was played only once, and I think it was... I don't know, actually. It's weird. Toxicology feels like it shouldn't be in this group, and I don't know why. I think it might also be because it's already won awards before. So it feels kind of like, do we really need to crown it a second time? I don't think so, especially because...
But think about it. If we crown it a second time, we can crown it a third time.
I don't know if Toxicology is very fun. Me personally, I don't think it has the required depth out of the psych games to really scratch my itch, as compared to something like Red Zone Signal and Doubting Love Letter. I agree with your comment that like it does kind of feel out of place. Doubting Love Letter is just so crazy, man. I don't understand. Like, the game is already fun. Like, Love Letter is fun enough that I would play it casually, like, with my friends, both in and outside the Genius Circle. And then the doubting mechanic, I think, is really, really good. I think it works really well for Love Letter, because, like, the one criticism I always have with Love Letter when I'm playing it casually is sometimes you just get really bad RNG and you spend, like, an entire round doing nothing but playing, like, Handmaids and Priusts or whatever. And it solves that issue, right? It makes it so that, hey, if you get a shit hand, you can make your play more dynamic by just lying. So I think it's super, super cool.
One of the things that shows that we have a good category pool is through doing this, I've changed my vote on a lot of these, which I think
crazy
is very cool.
I mean, I think there's just so much.
Yeah.
And like, none of us, not a single one of us has spectated literally everything this year. So it's good to get the other perspectives and to kind of talk through it. And also, like, for everyone else to hear us so that they can kind of get the context that is missing.